And I very much appreciate this testimony. I really have something I hope I've got time to ask from each of you. But I'd turn first to Dr. Steger. And you made a mention of bad tax policy. And to make a clarification into that, I'd ask you, as from a withholding perspective, you pay wages on a weekly basis, I presume, and you're doing at least monthly deposits, I would think, on payroll taxes and on income tax. Is it the federal government's position, is message that you get, that that's not adequate and that they have to then take the 3% out of the top of any federal contract you might have in addition to the withholding?
My understanding, and if I'm correct, is that there's a program out there that has been pushed off, but that if I sell anything under a government contractor, or I sell anything under it's part of a government contract, that if I sold you a computer for $1 and it cost me 96 cents, that the government paying me would withhold 3 cents on that dollar. So, you know.
And then you get a big check back when you file your income tax in April 15th.
You know, a year later, when I file my income taxes, if that turns out to be more.
And then you would have to calculate into your price the cost of that capital to carry that over.
I don't think that helps anyone.
Yeah. And I agree. And I just wanted to illuminate that because my point, though, is that you are now filing at least monthly withholdings for your taxes and your payroll.
I think my payroll is within a few days of after I paid my
perhaps weekly.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then the federal government really doesn't have a concern about whether you're paying your bills or not, because you're paying them up front weekly or monthly, and to withhold an additional part. I just wanted to reiterate that point. I'm glad that you brought it up. That's something that I think intimidates the potential of people that might want to become the entrepreneurs, which I'd direct the next question then to Dr. Saru on that. And I'm interested in all of you, especially the entrepreneurial background. And Dr. Saru, as I read through your testimony and simultaneous to the time you delivered it, I'm quite impressed with the science that you put behind the evaluation of entrepreneurship. I see in this testimony where you state entrepreneurship is a complex phenomenon, and you've identified a lot of it as much as I've ever seen, but that complexity I don't see referenced in your testimony, that complexity of how do we measure, let me just say, the intimidation effect of government regulation, or the fear of the taxes that Mr. Steger has referenced. What is the psychological composition of the entrepreneur? Is it genetic? Is it nature versus nurture? How do we raise more? And then, or if we can't, how do we then prepare a climate by which these entrepreneurs can grow and blossom, as opposed to getting locked into the corporate structure for somebody other than their own aspirations?
This is perhaps my favorite question of all to answer. It's what most of my classes begin with, and the question of nature versus nurture with entrepreneurship. And what we found over the years by anecdotal experience and by studies across countries is that there are certain individuals who have talents that lend themselves more readily to entrepreneurship. That simply means they are self-chosen. There are individuals who have the expressed interest and desire in entrepreneurial activity, and we firmly believe and have proven that it can be taught. These are skills and tools that can be taught. Babson College, and I'm fortunate enough to be a part of this, is actually working in conjunction with a charitable foundation to develop a teaching curriculum for Latin America for grade school teachers to teach their children the foundations of business and entrepreneurship. So not only do we believe this, but we're putting it into practice. And those skills center around a basic understanding of business, a basic understanding of where opportunities come from and how to recognize an opportunity, and then from there the tools that help individuals to shape that opportunity into a moldable business revenue model that enables success. If I may just finally answer your question with, we're very fortunate in this country because we have a national culture that encourages experimentation and does not penalize failure. Much as no one wants to fail, we find that many entrepreneurs often will start a business or two before they start a successful business. In many parts of the world, this is culturally and nationally not acceptable. In this country, we're very fortunate to allow individuals to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and then proceed.
I'm quite taken by this, and I would say that I'd suggest another look that might be also helpful with the perspective. If one could go back and survey the entrepreneurs as they get closer to the end of their career, the changes they might have observed in the difficulties of doing business in today's climate versus that of a quarter of a century ago, and ask them the specific question, do you think you could do it over again, or would you do it over again knowing what you know today? Were they blissfully ignorant and youthfully exuberant, and did that overcome the lack of knowledge? And back to you, Dr. Sru, and I recognize the clock's ticked out.
Yes, I'll be very brief with this. It is both. Many of the more seasoned entrepreneurs, if you will readily admit that if they knew everything they knew in their more mature years, they never would have taken the leap. But by the same token, these tend to be serial entrepreneurs who have taken multiple leaps. And my own experience, I work with a group of CEOs, $6 to $20 million companies. They're all serial entrepreneurs. As their companies have been purchased by larger firms, their tenure is 6 months or less before they leave the established companies and go back to yet another entrepreneurial activity. They have the gray hair that I have, so they're still not afraid to take that jump.